Hello there, it's Chris Scullion here from Tired Old Hack, and I'm going to be talking through everything that's happened so far at E3. Essentially everything, all the major conferences, with the exception of Nintendo's Treehouse stream thing, which it appears is only really going to be Zelda and Pokemon unless they pull some surprises out the bag. Long story short, my hand is injured and has been for about 5 or 6 weeks now, so I'm unable to type in any great length. So it's been a bit frustrating seeing all the E3 stuff and only really being able to tweet about it with my left hand. So I decided that it would probably be an idea to record this kind of podcasty type thing, just so I can kind of get all my thoughts about the conference out there, so anyone can have a listen, agree, disagree, get chatting about it. It'd be quite cool. As a result, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's an MP3 version and a YouTube version. The YouTube version will literally be a still image. I'm sorry about that. If my hand was working and I could use my mouse for any more than 5 minutes without it starting to click, the hand that is not the mouse. Mice are supposed to click. Then obviously I'd have loads of videos and slideshows and stuff in it, but as it is just now, this is purely audio. Just leave it aside while you're playing games or something, or while you're browsing, just have me talking in the background, because it's literally just me talking and nothing visual. So sorry about that, but in any other circumstances I would have something visual to go with this, but just now voice only. Okay, so the first conference was EA's Electronic Arts, and technically it wasn't really an E3 conference as they were desperate to have us believe, but let's face it, it was the start of E3, so it blatantly was an E3 conference. They opened the show with a promise that this year's experience was going to be different, even though it wasn't really, and that because the show was, even though the show was only going to be about an hour long, they were expecting the content creators and the audience to feedback, and that was what was going to make the show unique, even though that's kind of been the point of E3 forever, is that the press go there and play the games and then report back on what they thought. So I don't really know what was too different about the EA Play conference, other than the fact possibly that a lot of these content creators were actually YouTubers and they were hoping to get maybe more positive feedback, because obviously if you're a YouTuber who is a big Battlefield fan or a big FIFA fan or a big Madden fan, then obviously the response, the feedback they're going to give is invariably going to be positive, and I think that's what EA was banking on. So I don't doubt that all the FIFA and Madden and Battlefield communities will be delighted with what's reported back from their YouTubers, but for everyone else it was business as usual pretty much. Okay, so they opened up with Titanfall 2, which I didn't really play much of the first Titanfall because I'm not much of a multiplayer gamer, and the fact that Titanfall 1 had no real story mode to speak of or any kind of proper single player content kind of put me off it a bit, but Titanfall 2 looks like it's kind of going to solve those single player woes by featuring a proper story mode this time, which suits me. Other than that, it looks like there's a new grapple hook, but the rest of it seems fairly straightforward. It seems pretty much what you got with the first Titanfall, and by all accounts that was excellent, so I'm up for that. I'm up for maybe jumping into Titanfall 2 and seeing what Titanfall's got in its locker now that there's some single player stuff on there, and who knows, it might just convince me to go multiplayer as well and try that out. After Titanfall, EA then showed Madden, which, I mean, I like Madden, I'm a big Madden fan, and the trailer didn't show a hell of a lot, and they didn't really give away a lot other than the fact there was going to be a new commentary team. Apparently I was talking to Tom, my friend Tom, who was at the London EA event, and he said that behind the scenes the Madden developers were talking about adding a new kind of rookie mode for people who aren't too familiar with American football, so they can get in it. So that's a nice touch. Other than that, there wasn't a hell of a lot. They spent longer talking about this Madden esports tournament that they're having. In fact, they spent an inordinately long amount of time on that for something that only a few people are going to get involved in. I thought it was a really bad call to put so much focus on a tournament, and frankly 99.999% of the people watching couldn't give half a fuck about, because we'd rather just play the games than watch other people play. I appreciate that esports is a thing that's growing, but when you're trying to push new games to gamers, you really want to lead first and foremost with this is the stuff you'll be playing, not here's 6 knobs who are the best at it. It was a bit odd, I thought. So I think they could have handled Madden a bit better and maybe saved the esports stuff or the actual esports competitors and maybe presented it to them separately in a different night. Next came Mass Effect Andromeda, which didn't show a hell of a lot more than last year. There's another behind the scenes trailer. EA have got like a habit of doing these behind the scenes things instead, which are essentially just longhand ways of saying we've got fuck all. So here's just artfully shot videos in our studios of people sitting at computers as kind of proof that there's something coming. So we got some gameplay footage, must have in total come about 20-25 seconds worth of gameplay. And it looks nice. It looks really nice. It looks like Mass Effect, but a lot more detailed. I'm assuming it was run on PC version because it looked a lot better than you would expect to get on consoles at the moment, unless it was running on Scorpio or Neo. But yeah, it's Mass Effect, and even though we still don't know a hell of a lot about it, I'm still excited for that. So yeah, that was a good one. They then briefly mentioned their Play to Give initiative, which I think was another kind of dropped ball and missed opportunity. It's basically a charitable thing where they're adding loads of in-game challenges to all the different games, which will then lead to donations for 5 different charities. The problem is from what I've seen, these challenges that they've added are pretty difficult, and they don't really have they're not really open to all, even though they claim to be. The one in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, the kind of handheld game, the mobile game needs a pretty strong team to get involved. And there's a FIFA Play to Give tournament, which essentially I tried it last night. Nobody's playing it, so I couldn't actually get a match going. And when I could, I would imagine when I could, all the kind of very best of the best players will be taking part because you get a mega card pack or something when you win it. So it's strange. It's like a campaign to raise charity that not a lot of people can get involved in, and EA have already decided they're going to be donating $1 million at the end of it anyway. So it all seems like a bit of a weird way of doing things. It's like, here's a charity we already know how much money we're giving to it, so here's a bunch of challenges that most of you can't play. A bit odd. Next came FIFA. I'm obviously a massive FIFA fan, as anyone who follows me on social media will know, so well up for FIFA 17, although I'm slightly more concerned this year than I have been in previous years. Brand new engine, Frostbite engine, which is good. I'm well up for that. It's got managers in it. They're claiming they've got managers for the first time, but they've had managers in loads of other spin-offs, like the World Cup games and stuff have had managers in them before, so don't fall for that shite that it's the first time ever that only Frostbite can give you managers. That's not true. They're also claiming that only Frostbite can give you the new story mode called The Journey, which is the first time FIFA's had a story mode. Again, that's bollocks. You could have a story mode. The NBA 2K games have had a story mode for years now, so this isn't something that only Frostbite can provide. It's just marketing pish, but it's still good to have a story mode. Not totally sold on the main guy. This guy called Alex Hunter, who's the hero of this story mode. And apparently you'll get to choose, start from nowhere, and it seems that very quickly, maybe unrealistically quickly, you end up in a Premier League team, and an English Premier League team, and from there have to play for England and presumably end up winning the World Cup or something like that. Looks cool. I'm not convinced by the lead character. They got the guy who plays him up on stage to give like a really bad amateur dramatic performance, some really long monologue, and that was a bit shit, so it kind of put me off Alex Hunter for a bit, so I don't really know if I want to play as him anymore. And being Scottish, sorry if this sounds a bit xenophobic, I don't mean it to, I don't want to play for England. That's not, I appreciate I'm playing a pre-made character and his destiny is to play for England, but I would love if in the future they expanded this journey mode beyond just English licenses. I don't expect for a minute that Scotland's going to get involved, but I'd love to play instead for a Serie A team and end up playing for Italy, or even like a Bundesliga or La Liga, just a different leagues, because not everyone's obsessed with the Premier League. EA, you bunch of fannies. But yeah, other than that, excited for FIFA 17. My only other concern is that I'm worried we're going to get... They're pushing the engine so much and all the things the engine can do. I'm worried that it's going to be a Tiger Woods, a Rory McIlroy PGA Tour situation where a switch to a new engine means dropping a load of game modes. So I get the kind of concern that by focusing on all this new stuff, they're going to sneakily bring out a game that, similar to the NHL game they brought out with the Ignite engine for the first time, it had a load of modes missing, and I'm worried that maybe stuff like Be a Pro might be missing, and the Journey might be replacing that, or Teams mode. I can't remember what it's called. The one where you're in the team and there's like pro teams or pro clubs or something it's called, where there's like 10 aside or 20 people are playing online. They might drop that and say, and then bring it back in FIFA 18 and say due to popular demand and all this shit because they're focusing on the new engine. But we'll see. We shall see. A bit of FIFA can't be bad. Next up, EA introduced their new label, EA Originals. Obviously, after Unravel did reasonably well last year, they thought, okay, well, this is obviously done well for us. Let's milk it. So they're now bringing out a load of basically funding or part funding a load of indie games and publishing them on their behalf. So the first one is called Fee, and it's another Swedish game because if it isn't broke, why fix it? And it's a personal narrative about a relationship with nature, apparently. It looks really nice. It's basically, you could tell when the guy came out and was talking about it, it's like, this is Unravel again. Obviously it looks totally different from Unravel, but it's the same sort of situation where it's really nice and lovey-dovey and naturey and all that. So, and the art style is really interesting. So it looks like we've got another Unravel situation here with a really quirky, kind of nice looking platform type game that, yeah, will get more attention than maybe it would have got if EA hadn't been involved. So yeah, fair play. I'm up for that. It looks good. Then got this hefty Star Wars montage, which is again another behind the scenes thing, which didn't show a hell of a lot, but was essentially just a big long, there's more coming, honestly. So that was good. They said there was more stuff coming to Battlefront, and then said, there's a new Battlefront coming with stuff from the new movies in it, which is nice. Visceral Games, who are better known for Dead Space and more recently Battlefield Hardline, are bringing out a new action-adventure game, so that'll be good. We saw like literally 4 seconds of that in action. And Respawn, who do Titanfall, are working on another game as well. So yeah, there's going to be pretty Star Wars heavy, and there's some decent studios behind them, so that's exciting stuff if you're a fan of those wars in the stars, of which I am. And then it finished off with Battlefield 1, which I'm trying my best to get excited about. But I mean, the initial trailer they showed last month was great. I really don't know why they didn't save that trailer for this E3, because it was only a month they could have sat on it. Instead, they ended with a game that everyone already knew about, so it was a bit weird. It could have been a really exciting way to end it, because everyone's been wanting a World War game for ages, and so to end with Battlefield's back and it's World War One, yeah, but they didn't. Everyone already knew about it, so that was a bit shit. But yeah, it looks good. I'm up for it. They kind of soured it a wee bit by, as soon as the conference was finished, they went on to like a live stream thing with YouTubers, and they just totally chat all over the fact that this is a game based on a war in which 12 million, 13 million died, like 9 million soldiers and 5 million civilians or something like that died. And the first thing they cut to after the conference is this horribly produced YouTuber gameplay feed with a guy going and superimposing his face over soldiers as they beat each other to death with spiked clubs and everything. It's like, this is so tasteless. You're really not convincing me that this is going to treat World War One with any kind of tact. So I'm concerned about that. It still looks fun. I'll still play it, but I'm really worried about the way EA's handling it. I think they should cool it a bit and be a bit more Medal of Honor with it, and be a wee bit more respectful with it, with what is a historical war. This isn't like a fake war that you've made up. This is like other situations like Call of Duty's doing with a weird fucking future war where they can do whatever they want and make it weird and ridiculous. This is a real thing, so just calm your ham, EA and DICE, just calm it a wee bit. So yeah, that was EA's conference. In all, I was a bit underwhelmed with it. It seemed like a bit of a stopgap year for EA. A lot of it was, if I had to sum the conference up in one sentence, it would be, yeah, we've got fuck all. So here's just stuff, some kind of downloadable stuff for games that are already out. Here's the sports games you were expecting, and then here's just behind the scenes stuff to prove that the other games are on the way, but they're just nowhere near ready yet to even show you. So I expect EA's E3 next year to be better, because we'll then have proper Mass Effect, proper Star Wars games, more stuff like that. But this year felt like a wee bit, even Titanfall 2 kind of got lost in the crowd a bit, so that's a shame. But it was okay. It was a half decent performance, nothing revolutionary, but a lot of it felt like padding. And this whole spin about, oh no, this isn't an E3 conference, this is something totally different, we're doing something totally cool, was blatantly just a case of we don't have enough for E3, so we're just going to pretend this is our own show. And if anyone says it wasn't a very good E3 performance, we can say, oh well, it wasn't E3 anyway, it was just a wee thing we were doing. So your arse, you didn't have enough. Sorry EA, it was okay. I was say it was like a 5 out of 10 performance. After EA, late at night, Bethesda had their own conference. Now I will admit I haven't watched that. Well, I didn't stay up and watch Bethesda's conference. I caught up with some of the trailers after it, so I don't want to spend as long on that, because I think it'd be a bit unfair of me giving reactions to stuff I didn't actually watch a lot of. I still need to catch up with that stuff, so I'll breeze through it. A new Quake game, Quake Champions, which is a multiplayer game, which is cool. I would have liked a single player one, again, because I'm biased and don't like multiplayer much. And I always loved the first Quake, so it's a shame it's going to focus on multiplayer. But hey, that's obviously Quake Arena is like the big thing that Quake fans are into, so I realise I'm fully in the minority there. It's a multiplayer series first and foremost, and so Quake Champions, a lot of Quake fans, Quake Arena fans will be delighted with that. Fair play to yous. Elder Scrolls Legends is a free-to-play card game which is coming out this year. It's already on PC. That's about it. There's not really much to say. People are playing it already on the beta and stuff, so that's fine. There's some expansions coming to Fallout 4. I've never really started Fallout 4, so I'm not massively fussed there. But it looks like it's all customization stuff to help you build your base or whatever the shit you do in Fallout 4. Skyrim Special Editions coming out on PS4 and Xbox One out on October, and will support mods, which sounds quite cool. I'm up for that. I've had Skyrim sitting here for ages, because I've worked on Official Nintendo Magazine for 6 years and then Nintendo Gamer for a year. I basically missed a lot of the previous generation's big games because I didn't have time to play them. I was too busy reviewing Wii stuff and DS stuff. So Elder Scrolls, Skyrim's and Oblivion are both games that are sitting there on my shelf, and I've never got a chance to play, so I might just trade those in and wait for the Skyrim Special Edition instead, so I can avoid the kind of bugs and glitches that apparently plagued it. So yeah, that's good. A lot of people are kind of taking the piss, we want something new, but I think they appreciate how hard it is and how long it takes to build a new world the size that you would expect from an Elder Scrolls game. So this will do as a nice wee stopgap. I can appreciate a lot of people who maybe put hundreds of hours into Skyrim and don't want to start from scratch, but again, selfishly, I haven't yet, so I'm up for it. I'm also massively up for Prey. The new Prey coming, which is excellent. I wasn't really expecting that. Apparently it's been in development for years as Prey 2, but now they're just calling it Prey. And it's about... I'm not really sure what it's about. So I was watching the trailer. It looks like there's some sort of experiments going wrong and stuff. First Prey has one of the best... If you've never played Prey, that's pretty difficult to say. Get a hold of it. You can get it really cheap on Xbox 360. It's got the best... one of the best opening sequences in any game ever, where you start in a diner and aliens basically abduct you from the diner. It's amazing. It's really worth getting a hold of just for that opening bit. The game kind of fell apart a wee bit later on. You can go in an alien spaceship and there's loads of doors shaped like fannies and stuff like that, and it kind of loses it a wee bit. But it was still an excellent game, really a pleasant surprise, so I'm well up for this new Prey. That'll be exciting. And then finally they ended with Dishonored 2, which looks great. Again, Dishonored 1 is one I've still to catch up on, but The trailer for the second one looks fantastic. It's really worth chasing up. Loads of gory bits, loads of kind of supernatural elements, and a female hero, which is good. Not enough of those. After that, there was a PC gaming show. There's really no point me talking about this one because it was essentially just 90 minutes of trailers. What I'll do is, in the article I put on Titled Hack, and if you're watching this on YouTube, on the YouTube link, the About stuff on YouTube, I'll put a link to Kotaku's coverage, because they basically just showed all the trailers, and that's what it was. There wasn't a lot of chat, there wasn't a lot of massive announcements or anything like that. It was just 90 minutes of PC game trailers, which is totally fine. A lot of the stuff there looked good. Big announcement for me is Super Hot coming to VR, but other than that, check out the link I'll give you to Kotaku's coverage, and just you can get all the trailers there, and they've done a better job than I can do with one hand. So yeah, follow that link, watch all the PC trailers, and then come back and hear what I've got to say about the rest. So following the PC gaming show was Microsoft's conference, which was the first big one, the first of two big ones, Microsoft and Sony, obviously. And Microsoft's been getting a kicking recently by much of the gaming public, because it's the way these things come in waves. I mean, every generation one company gets a kicking and the other one gets praised, often blindly, for no matter what they do. Last year it was Microsoft that was getting all the praise, the blind praise, and Sony was just getting a kicking constantly because of PS3. This year the roles are reversed. It's one of these situations where no matter what Microsoft does, it's going to get criticised, and no matter what Sony does, everyone's going to say, "Oh, amazing, knocked it out of the park." So as someone who's been around long enough to know how these things work, I think both Microsoft and Sony, which I'll get to later, were strong conferences. I thought Microsoft did everything it could have done. I think anyone who owns an Xbox One, or is thinking of owning an Xbox One, or even is just a PC gamer, will be excited by a lot of the stuff Microsoft announced at its conference. It started off with the Xbox One S, a new kind of slimmer version of the Xbox, which I'm well up for. My Xbox One gets a lot of use, and I'm well up for a smaller one, which 40% smaller actually, which is really, they're saying it's their smallest Xbox ever, which is bold words, although understandable, because even the 360, when they made the smaller version of the 360, it didn't get much smaller, so it'll be interesting to see how small the Xbox One S is. The big thing that a lot of people aren't talking about, it has 4K video support for Netflix and 4K and stuff like that, but one thing a lot of people aren't focusing on is that it's got a 4K Blu-ray player built in it as well, and that is, considering the price, is going to be, it starts at $250, I believe, and for the 500 gigabyte model, £250, that is $300, and goes up to $400, so I don't know what that'll be, $350 for the 2 terabyte model. £250 for a 4K Blu-ray player is fucking mental, in a good way, because 4K Blu-ray players are still a very new thing in Britain. I was looking up about it. I mean, if you're a gamer, you're not going to give a shit about what I'm about to say here, but if you're into movies and stuff, and you're thinking about or already have a 4K telly, this is pretty important stuff. I was looking up 4K Blu-ray players because it's a totally new thing here in Britain. America's had them for a wee while, but they're still a new thing. As of April, according to Tech Radar, there were only 2 4K Blu-ray players in the UK as of 2 months ago, and the cheapest one is the Samsung DMP UB900, for model number fans, is the cheapest of the two, and it was £430. So considering in Britain you're talking £430 for a low-end 4K Blu-ray player, to get one for $250, which is also an Xbox One, is an incredible deal, an absolutely incredible deal, to the point that Microsoft's playing really clever here, because a lot of film buffs who couldn't give a shit about games might just buy an Xbox One S just purely to get a cheap 4K Blu-ray player. It's the DVD PS2 situation all over again, where loads of people bought PS2 because it played DVDs, and likewise with the PS3 and Blu-rays. Microsoft's doing it with Xbox One S. It plays 4K Blu-rays and it's dirt cheap. Well, dirt cheap relatively speaking, in terms of other 4K Blu-ray players. So yeah, that to me is the big exciting thing about Xbox One S. Otherwise, it's just a smaller Xbox One with a potentially bigger hard drive, depending on which one you get, and the controller looks nice too. So I'm definitely going to upgrade to that. I've been looking for 4K tellies anyway, so that just gives me another wee bit up the arse to do it. Scorpio, which we'll talk about later, is obviously coming, but it's not here for another year and a half. So this is a nice wee stopgap, especially if like me, you're going to trade in your Xbox One, you'll get another wee chunk of change off the main price of the One S. So yeah, I'm up for that. On to the games, they showed Gears of War 4 first. I've never really been a massive Gears of War fan, so I couldn't really get in it. It looks nice enough, and there's a nice wee twist at the end of the gameplay they showed with an old Marcus Phoenix in it, which made everyone lose their shit. Yeah, like I say, I'm not the world's biggest Gears of War fan, so I couldn't get excited about that, but I can see why some people are up for it. Looks nice enough. Looks like Gears of War, basically, so yeah, get stuck in. Fill your boots. Speaking of Gears of War, they're also going to be adding General Ram from Gears of War to Killer Instinct, which is just basically slowly becoming Microsoft All-Stars Battle Royale. You get the Battletoads in it and the guy from Halo and all that kind of shit, so it's cool. Fair enough. Killer Instinct is their fighting game, and they promised when Xbox One first came out that it was going to evolve with the system, and they're obviously sticking to that, so fair play to them. More Killer Instinct stuff is always good. Then the big one for me, fucking Forza Horizon 3. Yes! I'm an enormous fan of Forza Horizon and Forza Horizon 2. I've put over 5 days into Horizon 2 alone. So what's that, 130 hours or something. It's the best game this generation for me so far. So to see that there's another one coming, it's set in Australia, even though I don't like Australia, it looks great. There's like buggies and stuff in it. You can't believe how up for Forza Horizon 3 I am. That to me made my E3. I'm delighted with that. New Forza Horizon, fantastic. Yeah, if you haven't seen the gameplay video, go and check it out. I appreciate not everyone's into Forza games or open world racing games, but this is a fucking incredible game, so can't wait for Horizon 3. I'm hoping it'll maybe be 60 frames this time, because Horizon 2 was 30 frames, but I'd understand if it isn't. The main Forza Motorsport series is 60 frames a second, 1080p, but Forza Horizon 2 was only 30 frames, but that's because it wasn't linear circuits like Forza Motorsport does. At any point you can just turn and cut through a field or whatever, so it can't really load in advance. It can't predict so easily in advance what scenery's coming up, so yeah, long story short, I can understand why it had a lower frame rate, because it's less predictable. Either way, Horizon 3, I don't care if it's fucking 10 frames a second, I'm buying that day zero. I'll probably pre-order it as soon as I can. I'm well up for that. Then we saw Recore, the next game from a-fussin. It looks really cool, but we haven't still not really seen a lot about it. It's like a robot type thing. Just a woman who's like one of the last humans on Earth, and she's aided by 6 robot chums, 5 or 6 robot chums, and it looks cool. Saw a bit of gameplay. Looks like there's some platforming stuff in there. Looked like it could be quite tricky. But yeah, I'll need to see a bit more before I can form a better opinion of Recore, but it looks alright. Looks decent. I'm up for that. Then showed Final Fantasy 15, a big boss fight with a big Titan thing. That looked pretty cool. A big kind of a real Shadow of the Colossus feel to it, watching the footage. But yeah, I'm up for that. I've been kind of going off Final Fantasy for the last few years, but 15 looks like it'll win me over. More Battlefield 1 stuff came next, usual shit. They showed the trailer that they showed the previous night, which is a bit odd. And EA did their usual EA access thing, saying that if you've got Xbox One, you'll get early access to it, which is the case with all EA games. If you've got... Speaking of which... So, windy pops. Speaking of which, just on a tangent, if you've got an Xbox One, you really should think about getting EA access if you're not already. It's a ridiculous deal. I can't remember what it is a month. It's really cheap. It's like £4 a month or £5 a month or something. You get access to their vault, which is 21 EA games. They've started doing Xbox 360 ones as well, so you can get Dead Space as part of it. And every EA game that comes out, you get early access to the first 8 or 10 hours, depending on what the game is, with achievements and everything. And if you decide to buy the game, it just carries your save on. So it's an amazing deal. You're basically paying for 8 hours, the first 8 hours of every EA game coming out, plus essentially once those games have been out for like a year or so, you then get them for free. Yeah, for free with inverted commas, as long as you're paying for it. So yeah, that was just my segue, my pre-promotion for EA Access, which I'm really happy with. So that's Battlefield. Then they went on Division. Division's getting some DLC shite, randomly generated dungeons, because New York's got loads of dungeons. So that's the Division. Not really fussed about that. Sorry. Then this is the kind of lull. Microsoft conferences always have a lull, and this was a lull in it, where they then started talking about Xbox Live features. This is the sort of stuff that could have been announced elsewhere on the Xbox website, but instead we're getting it in an E3 conference. Now you can play background music while you play games. This is all coming in the summer. Play background music. You can use Cortana. I've been using Cortana already in the early access preview, and it's shite. It's all shite. I'm still not sold on using your voice to control a system, and changing it from Xbox, changing it from having to say Xbox to having to say Hey Cortana or whatever isn't really going to change anything. It's just a pain in the arse. This is Microsoft trying to force Cortana on everyone. I couldn't give half a fuck about it. This is one that interests me just because of my dodgy dealings, is that you can change your language no matter where you live. Basically, when you change the country settings on an Xbox One, if you change the country to Japan, the language is in Japanese, whether you like it or not, which is worrying. Not worrying, but it's a wee bit of a hassle, because when you're sneaky factoid here, when Xbox does games with gold, and we get your 2 free games every month with Xbox One, sometimes different regions have different games because games certain games maybe aren't out in Japan or in or wherever, but you can change your console's region in the settings to that location, and then also get the free games for there. So, but the problem is, if you change your location to Japan, it's often Japan that gets different games with gold games, but when you change it, everything's in Japanese. So it's a bit of a nightmare kind of navigating it. So now that you can change the location to Japanese but keep the language in English, that's great. Basically, long story short, because you can get extra games sneakily that way. But for everyone else, it's not really a big deal. And also clubs, which again, as someone not interested in multiplayer, I'm not that fussed, but it's essentially online communities that love particular games. So if you're a big Forza Horizon 3 fan but you don't have any pals that have it, you can go and search for a group or a club of people who like Forza Horizon 3 and join them and play with them. It's all very nice, all very lovely. I can give a shit. And then Arena, which is a Xbox tournament platform that they didn't really say much more about, other than the fact that EA would be supporting it in the coming years, which doesn't fill me with that much excitement. They then moved on. They continued the lull by talking about Minecraft. Essentially, Minecraft can be playable. It's got crossplay now for iOS, Android, and Windows 10. So if you're using one of those, you can talk to people and play with people using the other one. And the iOS and Android versions will have achievements soon, which is quite good. They're adding add-ons to the mobile versions, which let you change the creatures and stuff. It's fine. It's a bit like a shitty version of mods, basically. You can customise your own Xbox controller, which is fine. I'll maybe get myself a green one. That's cool. And then they went on to the indie kind of section. So they showed off Inside. I say showed off, they literally just had a really brief teaser trailer. Inside's the one from the people who made Limbo. And it's out in a couple of weeks, and to celebrate, Limbo is now free for everyone with an Xbox One. So if you've got Xbox One, you don't have Limbo yet, get all up in it, because now it's free. And then showed their usual indie showreel that Microsoft usually does with their ID at Xbox label, and then showed off We Happy Few, which kind of came out of nowhere and looks amazing. It looks, at first when I saw it, it's a kind of first person type thingy, really dark, really stylized, when the trailer started, I thought this looks a bit shit. It looked a bit point and clicky and a bit rigid, but once it got going, it's really disturbing. I'm well up for that. It looks fantastic. So if you haven't seen the trailer for We Happy Few, go and hunt it down and give it a watch because it's brilliant. It's a wee bit long, but it's worth the watch. It builds up really well. They then spoke about Gwent, which is a card game for The Witcher, which I couldn't care less about, but apparently it's coming, so yeah, lucky you. Tekken 7 is coming out on Xbox One next year, and to celebrate, if you've got Xbox Gold, you can now get Tekken Tag Tournament 2 free. The Xbox One version of that, so that's the Xbox 360 version of that, backwards compatible, so that's good. Then came Dead Rising 4, which sneakily I think is going to be multi-platform because it's the only one they didn't say is Xbox One and Windows 10 exclusive. They just said coming to Xbox One and Windows 10, so that's almost certainly coming to PS4 as well. Dead Rising 4 looks brilliant. I love Dead Rising, and this looks just as mental. They're setting it at Christmas and bringing back Frank West, so yeah, I'm delighted with that. Can't be more excited for Dead Rising 4. That'd be great. Hideki Kamiya came out to talk about Scalebound and showed like a massive boss battle, which I'm really trying to get excited about, but because I know it's Kamiya and it's going to be good, but I don't know. I never really like boss battles at the best of times, and so it was a spectacle and it looked great, like summoning your dragon and flying about Panzer Dragoon style and shooting this massive crab apart. But I don't know. A lot of focus on co-op, which I hope isn't a central mechanic of the game, because again, of a social, antisocial chap, and would rather play it on my own. And yeah, I'd rather see more of the kind of standard gameplay instead of these big boss fights, because boss fights are great set pieces and look amazing in practice, but often they're the weakest in terms of gameplay. I want to see what standard levels look like before I can get too excited about it. Same deal with Sea of Thieves. I think I'm in the minority here. I saw a lot of buzz on Twitter from people saying that Sea of Thieves looks excellent. I don't know if it's just because I don't care much about being a pirate, except for when I was young and used to get pirate Amiga games, but that was a different kind of piracy. I just can't get excited for it. I like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, to be fair, but that's the only time I've ever been into pirate type games. The trailer didn't help. I really wish companies would get out of this habit of getting gunning pricks to play multiplayer games and talk to each other and then show us it as if to say, this could be you. I really don't. If that could be me, I'm not buying it. Because it's just a bunch of fannies going, oh no, oh no, no. No, not impressed. Yeah, the game itself looks okay, but I'd need to see more of it. I'm not. Again, it's another multiplayer. There's this increasing focus on multiplayer and co-op and stuff, which is a nerd and a lonesome dove not really into. So sorry folks, Sea of Thieves doesn't really do it for me. State of Decay 2 does. It looks pretty cool, even though the trailer didn't really give away much. First State of Decay was excellent, a bit of zombies, so kind of beat that. And then the last game they showed was Halo Wars 2. First Halo Wars was okay, but it's not really my favourite genre, so I'm not that fussed. And then finally Phil Spencer came out with the Scorpio, Project Scorpio, saying it's coming, 4K gaming, VR capable, end of 2017. And some twat developer said these are the highest quality pixels that anyone has ever seen, as if pixels can suddenly change. So yeah, fuck him. I'm up for it. I mean, it's weird. I'm going to buy it no matter what, because I'm a gamer, and this is, although it's not my full-time job anymore, it's still what I'm enthusiastic about, and I still basically need it to be able to do a freelance job and to still know what I'm talking about. You can't really give an opinion on a system or feedback on a system if you don't actually own the thing and don't use it regularly. So I'm going to buy it no matter what, just purely so that I can still be an expert as such. But yeah, I'm still excited for it. I'm curious to see more about it. There's a lot of things I'm curious about. I'm curious about the promise that no matter which Xbox One you have, you're not going to miss out. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to carry that promise out. I'm not massively convinced yet. I think that's a bit of spin. I want to see basically I want to see a game on Xbox One and a game on Scorpio side by side, and what the difference is, whether it's just a case of putting up graphics sliders, in which case, yep, I'm up for it, or I mean, it has to be that has, if what they're saying is true and games work on both Xbox One and Project Scorpio, then it has to be nothing more than graphics sliders going up. So you play the game on Xbox One and it's 1080p or 900p and 30 frames a second, and you play it on Scorpio and it's 4K, and it's either 4K and 30 frames a second, or 1080p and 60 frames a second, or there's better lighting, or there's more particle effects or stuff like that. That's it. They can't, if they're going to stick to their promise, they can't mess about with physics or AI or anything, because then you're creating two different games. Because if the Xbox One isn't powerful enough to handle complex AI or physics, then you're not getting the same game, and that promise is broken. So it has to purely be resolution, frame rate, texture detail and stuff like that, for games to work on both, in which case that would be an easy solution. Developers wouldn't have to do too much. It would essentially be making PC games for the Xbox One, where there's like a low graphics mode and a high graphics mode, and it just toggles depending on which system you're using. That's the way I'm seeing it. That's the way I'm envisaging it. Envisaging it? Is that the word? Yeah, envisioning. That's the way I see it. Yeah, that's about it. The only other thing that happened at the Xbox conference, it was kind of an overrunning, like an overall vibe that were kind of kept pushing all the way through it, is that Xbox One, all their kind of first party Xbox One games going forward will also play on PC. So if you buy it on Xbox One, you've instantly got a free PC version, and vice versa. And for some reason, that was the news that a lot of people, let's face it, Sony fans, used to beat Microsoft with, saying, "Oh, Microsoft have fucked it. They've killed the Xbox One by doing this. Why would you buy an Xbox One now when you could buy the PC game?" Frankly, to be honest, Microsoft couldn't give a shit whether you buy an Xbox One or not. As long as you're buying their games, as long as you buy Forza Horizon 3, and as long as you buy Scalebound and Sea of Thieves and Dead Rising 4 and ReCore and Gears of War 4, as long as you buy them, they don't give a shit whether you play them on Windows 10 or Xbox One. As long as you're playing them on something that they run, that they're in charge of, they're delighted. I mean, it's the whole Razors and Razor Blade situation. That the console isn't the thing that makes them the money; it's the games that makes them the money. It's like, sorry if you know this analogy already, but companies, razor blade companies like Gillette and that, sell you the razor cheap because they know they're going to make money on the replacement blades. And it's the same deal with console manufacturers. They sell you the console either making a loss on it or breaking even, usually making a loss at first, because once you buy a couple of games on it, the profit they make on the games gives them an overall profit. So they don't care if you don't buy an Xbox One. If you're saying, "Oh, I can't believe all these games are on PC now, and I've got a gaming PC. I'm not going to buy an Xbox One now. I'll just buy Forza Horizon 3 for my PC." Fine, they couldn't give half a fuck. I mean, if you're playing it on Xbox One, then as far as they're concerned, you're not using PS4 at that time, and they're happy. If you're buying it for Windows 10, then as far as they're concerned, you're not using Steam at that point, and they're happy. You're using their service, you're using either their console or their operating system, and they're delighted. This concept that by releasing games on both Xbox One and Windows 10, you're hamming Xbox One, I don't buy that in the slightest. That's only in terms of people who purely look at number of consoles sold as opposed to number of people playing games. So yeah, in short, they haven't fucked it. This is quite a clever plan, actually, because if anything, if I was a PC gamer, and most PC gamers with high quality PC rigs, you've got to imagine, have got a lot of disposable income, because it's not a cheap hobby. If I'm a PC gamer and I don't own a console, and I buy Forza Horizon 3, Gears of War 4, ReCore, Dead Rising 4, Scalebound, Sea of Thieves, or any combination of those, and it turns out I'm informed that because I've bought these, I've now got Xbox One versions. If I see an Xbox One S and it's 200 odd quid, I'm just going to fucking buy it just to go onto the telly, because I've already got like basically a games library already sitting waiting for it. I don't need to go and buy games for it because I've already got them. And if I know my save game is going to transfer between my PC version and my console version, then yeah, I'm going to buy the console as well, because if I'm going to be able to relax at night and just sit in front of my couch instead of sitting at my PC, yeah, fine, I'll do that. And yeah, there's always going to, and speaking of that, there's always going to be a market for console gaming. This idea that if it's on console and PC, console dies and PC wins every time, I don't really buy that. I've got a powerful PC which plays games at a higher quality than both my Xbox One and my PS4, but I'd rather play my Xbox One, my PS4 and my Wii U, because I prefer sitting on the couch in front of the telly instead of sitting at my computer. So there will always be a market for consoles, because that's just the way it is. Sorry, I went a bit off topic there. And kind of in short, Microsoft had a decent conference. I wouldn't say it was their best ever, but I've seen on Twitter a lot of hyperbole and a lot of people saying that, oh, Microsoft have totally fucked it. What a disaster. And I think that's just a kind of carrying on from the usual what I was saying earlier about how Microsoft this generation are the whipping boys like Sony was last generation, and it's one of these situations where no matter what they do, if they did say Scorpio's out in 6 months, you would have had Sony fans saying, "Oh, you've abandoned your Xbox One already." Well, that's a great way of treating your fans. But instead, they said it's out in 2 years' time, and now they're saying, "Oh, you're saying that now, or you've killed your console." So it's one of those situations. It is what it is. We are where we are. Look at it objectively. Well, we can't look at it objectively, because objectively it's just that was a conference. But if you look at it fairly, I think it was a fairly solid conference. There was a lot of new games announced. If you've got an Xbox One, you should be happy with what's coming. There's a lot of good stuff on the way. And if you don't have an Xbox One, you've got a fancy PC instead, you should still be excited, because there's loads of good stuff coming to that as well. Everyone wins. Calm your hams, everyone. Calm your collective ham. Later that day, after Microsoft, we had Ubisoft, depending on what whether you're French or not, and they started off with Just Dance 2017, because they have to do Just Dance legally and contractually. Just get that out of the way. Just say Just Dance 17 is coming out because you know it is. Let's forget about it. No one cares. As long as Ubisoft continue to make money on Just Dance, and as long as paying the license for the songs and making the game cost less than the money they make from it, then there will always be a Just Dance game every year. Just take that as read, so never mind. Then showed Ghost Recon Wildlands, which looks quite cool. I'm up for that. Again, there's a pretty heavy emphasis on co-op, which I'm concerned about. As long as it's like The Crew, in that you can go solo if you'd rather, I'm up for it. The gameplay for me was ruined by Ubisoft's insistence on this fucking technique of having fake actors playing through the games in co-op, and with the least believable. So it's like, it just makes me want to play multiplayer even less, because it's like the guy's playing, okay, yeah, I just got the blueprints from Chief Perez. He looks like he's going to be. No one talks like that. No one gives exposition to each other when they're playing multiplayer. They just say, "I come on over to my bit, shoot this cunt." They don't give all this. Yeah, it turns out that the mafia are really involved in shady dealings, and then some other guy turns up halfway through the trailer, goes, "Hey, you guys look like you could need a hand." It's like, fuck off, mate. A-Team. It's just, nobody does that. What you do is you say, "Oh, wee Huey's online. Mom will give him a shout," and you send him a message, and you wait 3 minutes before wee Huey, he sends you a message on Xbox saying, "Hold on, I don't have the game. Let me go and get the game and put it in." And then 5 minutes later, Huey comes on and says, "Sorry guys, I never had the game. Who are we shooting?" And that's it. It's not all this fucking, yeah, the cartels coming through now. Do you get it? Yeah, I got it. I see it in my vision. I see it in my POV. Fuck off, mate. This shows the game. We can imagine in our head, but we're not idiots. We've got imaginations. We can imagine in our head what the multiplayer is like without you having to patronise us and show us fake multiplayer gameplay that I mean, the gameplay's not fake, but the bants are beyond unrealistic. So this is your last strike, Ubisoft. Don't do it again, please, because it's really annoying. And it ruined the game. It ruined the walkthrough for me, to be honest. I'm up for the game, but I really couldn't get into it because the voice work was putting me off. Sorry. After Wildlands was South Park, The Fractured Butthole, which looks amazing. If you haven't played Stick of Truth yet, you should definitely get a hold of it. Best possible way of doing that is by the looks of it pre-ordering the game, because pre-ordering The Fractured Butthole you get a free copy of Stick of Truth on PS4 or Xbox One or possibly PC. I didn't check, I need to double check that. That's only if you buy digitally. That's something that they didn't really make they didn't really clarify. If you pre-order the physical copy, you don't get Stick of Truth right away, you get it later on. It's only if you pre-order the digital copy you can play it right now. So bear that in mind. If you go and pre-order the physical one, you're going to have to wait a bit before you get your free copy of Stick of Truth. It's only if you pre-order it digitally that you'll get it right now, so get in it. South Park looks incredible. It looks hilarious. It looks massively offensive, which I'm well up for. Yeah, I can't wait. I properly can't wait for that. It's basically, whereas Stick of Truth was taking the piss out of RPGs, the second one is taking the piss out of superheroes by the looks of it, but it's still an RPG turn-based game. Looks cool. Up for it. Then came more shit about DLC for The Division, like a survival mode that's coming. Whatever. He just said it would focus on weather, but he didn't say any more than that. After that, they moved on to VR, and Ubisoft's taken this really weird direction with VR. They only showed 2 VR games, and they were both multiplayer games. Now, I don't know. I mean, the VR market is small enough as it is. There's not a lot of people dropping loads of money on an Oculus Rift or a Vive or Vive, whatever they call it. So already you're looking at a really small user base, but to expect that 3 or 4 or 5 virtual reality headsets are going to be in the same room is really stretching it. I mean, I don't see a lot of situations where friends are going to bring their PCs over to someone's house and everyone's sitting with their VR setup. So, I mean, it's got a text message that scared the shit out of me. I mean, the Eagle VR looks nice. Like you're basically a bird flying through Paris to hunt rabbits and score points. It looks pretty cool, even though it would probably make me vomit into a bucket. And the VR Star Trek Bridge Crew looks like every Star Trek nerd's dream. I'd love to try it out, but again, I don't see a situation where I'm going to get to sit with 4 or 5 people in the same room. And the argument could be, okay, well, they'll just make it online, but then that removes a lot of the vibe. If you're not in the same bridge, if you're not in the same kind of room together, I think that removes a lot of the feeling and a lot of the immersion of being there in a room with different people. If you're hearing them online, that kind of breaks the illusion a bit, and you get the feeling that if you're not hearing their voice perfectly, essentially, and you're hearing them muffled through a microphone, then that's going to break the illusion a bit, and you won't feel so much like you're on the Star Trek bridge. It really needs to be 4 people in the same room. So they're both really cool looking VR demos, and fair play to Ubisoft for showing them. I'm just not sure how likely it is that 99.9% of gamers are ever going to experience them in their own home. So I'm not really sure, but it seems to just be like a kind of proof of concept thing rather than something that they actually want people to own, so that's a shame. They then showed For Honor, a really long bit of For Honor gameplay, which looks really cool. Jason Vandenberg's one of the guys in charge of developing it. He's a character, to say the least. If you saw him during the conference, you'll see what I mean. He was the guy responsible for Red Steel 2, which was excellent as well, so he's a cool guy. For Honor looks great. It reminds me a lot of Rise on Xbox One, which a lot of people would think is a bad thing, but I loved Rise on Xbox One, so I'm up for Honor as well. Looks great. Grow Up then came later as a kind of sequel to Grow Home, so you're a robot who goes up a beanstalk into space, and this looks like the same sort of thing, but which is fine. I liked Grow Home, so I'll be up for Grow Up. Then Trials of the Blood Dragon. So Blood Dragon was like a weird 80s DLC for Far Cry 3, like designed like an 80s action movie, and so they're doing the same now for Trials Evolution. Is it Evolution? Whatever the new Trials is. Fusion. Is it Fusion? There's too many Trials games, but basically whatever the latest Trials game is, there's this now DLC for it, called Trials of the Blood Dragon, which is like, it looks like mental 80s style Trials game. So it's out now, so I'll need to get hold of it. I don't actually know if it is DLC. I'll need to have a look. You might be able to buy it standalone, because you could do that with Blood Dragon. Far Cry Blood Dragon was a standalone game. You didn't need Far Cry 3, so I wonder if Trials of the Blood Dragon is the same. I'll need to look up. Either way, it looks fun. I like Trials. Then they only had 2 more games left. They had Watch Dogs 2, which looks a lot better than Watch Dogs 1 did. It still looks a bit hipstery and insufferable in terms of story. There's a guy who's got a set of ski goggles that just put hashtags and emoticons on it, which really annoyed me for some reason. It's so wanky, and there's just a lot of hipster goings on. So I can see myself getting it because it looks really cool, but I can see myself being infuriated by it at the same time because it looks basically like the ultimate hipster game, and the ridiculous irony of the game essentially being like an anti-consumer, anti-capitalist, basically anti-corporation type message, and then having the guy from Sony Pictures come out and say, oh yeah, and we're going to make a Watch Dogs movie. It's like, fuck off, mate. You're doing exactly what the game's talking about. But yeah, Watch Dogs 2 looks decent, if a bit concerning in terms of story and characters. The gameplay itself looks impressive, as does Steep, the last game they showed. It's basically an open world mountain extreme sports game, and it looks very cool. Yeah, there's not really much to say about this one. It looks like you can do skiing or snowboarding or that weird squirrel suit thing where you just fly. Again, I'm well up for it. I'm also concerned about the voice acting in the game. There's a lot of moments where people were jumping and going, "Woo, yeah, ah, yeah, woo." If that's there's a point during the gameplay, during the trailer, that it was happening like constantly. Every jump you were hearing loads of people go, "Ooh, ah, ah." You better be able to turn that off, or it better not be as extreme, because that's going to be really fucking annoying fast. Because if I was skiing and jumping off a cliff, I would just be silent, because I'd be petrified. I would be going, "Ah, hang 10, bro," or whatever the fuck they were saying. But yeah, it looks really nice. I'm well up for Steep, as long as you can turn the voices off. Sold. I'm losing my voice. I've been talking for an hour now, and I've still got Sony to do. But that's okay, we'll get there. So yeah, Ubisoft's conference was decent, certainly better than EA's in terms of third party stuff. Went on far too long. It went on for nearly 2 hours, and a lot of that was because they were showing loads of gameplay footage, and they really didn't need to. I think they could have got away with the trailers, maybe a bit less gameplay footage, and then said, by the way, there's loads of shit on our YouTube channel, go and check it out, because Ubisoft are great for doing that. Big 10-15 minute gameplay chunks of their games and putting them on their YouTube channel. They've done that in the past with Assassin's Creed and the like. So it would have been good if they'd done that instead. So like showing a brief bit of gameplay, maybe the trailer, and said, for more, check out the YouTube. As it was, it felt like it was going on for an eternity. And even though it was being presented by Aisha Tyler, who's brilliant, she was really funny. Again, she's a fantastic presenter, and she should present all Ubisoft conferences forever. It still felt far too long. By the end of it, I was just like, thank fuck, it's finished. But yeah, it was good. There's a lot of stuff. Considering that's all coming from a single publisher, that's really impressive, and shows that Ubisoft are still kind of leading the way, so that was really good. Fair play to them. Exciting stuff. And then finally, Sony, the big one, according to many. Again, like I was saying before, this is much like Microsoft. We're in a situation where they could do no right. Sony kind of went into this and with a kind of overall feeling that they could do no wrong. That Sony's stock's pretty high just now, so there'll be a lot of kind of for want of a better word, fanboys who are adamant that Sony could, no matter what Sony had showed at this show, people would have come out saying it was amazing. You had loads of people even saying it was the best E3 conference ever, which, considering last year had Shenmue 3 and Final Fantasy Remake and all that, and the long-awaited Return of the Last Guardian, to say this year's was the best ever is just fucking nonsense, to be honest. So it was a very strong conference, but let's not go overboard here. I know Sony's the hot thing just now, but let's calm down a wee bit and see what was actually shown. Okay, so Sony kicked off with God of War. People weren't really sure what it was for a while until it turned out it was God of War, the kind of old Kratos and his wee son. It looks like it's about Norse mythology now instead of Greek, so it looks quite cool. It looks incredible. I wonder how the hardcore God of War fans will feel when they get their hands on it, because it looks so far like it's going down a more Last of Us type route. It looks more like a Last of Us game than a God of War game. It's a much tighter third-person viewpoint, much tighter, much closer behind Kratos. Although it still had the kind of epic battles and stuff, it did look a lot more, like I say, like a Last of Us type experience than previous God of War, like all out action. But we need to kind of wait and see what the full game looks like. We need to calm down a bit and wait. You can't really judge a full game based on 10 minutes. But yeah, it looked good. Even a wee bit of sadness at the end when he made his son kind of kill the goat thing. That was very, very heartfelt. But yeah, looks good. Looks decent. Up next was Ben's Studio with Days Gone, which basically looked like a cross between The Last of Us again and Ride to Hell Retribution, the terrible 360 game, which is harsh. No, I think I've seen other sites in Twitter basically saying it looks more like Sons of Anarchy. That's probably a fairer comparison. Yeah, it's pretty clear that the success of The Last of Us has led to a lot of imitations, and that's no bad thing. Is they're all going down this cinematic third person. All I was thinking was emotions, and at the end of the day, it's emotions that carry you through to the end. All this kind of trailer shit. So, yeah, there would be more of Days Gone by the end of the conference, but for now they just showed a trailer and it was suitably moody and looked the part. So, yeah, a nice wee surprise. It looks pretty cool. They then followed it up with The Last Guardian yet again, and probably for the last time ever at E3, The Last Guardian, because according to the new trailer, it's coming out on the 25th of October this year. The Last Guardian is finally coming out. Brilliant. There's bits you can tell in the trailer that you could tell kind of carried over from the PS3 when they were working on it for that. Like the wee boy's character model looked a bit basic and stuff like that, but that really doesn't matter. I've never really been that bothered about graphics. If you were an Xbox fanboy and you wanted to call it out, that's what you would call it out on, saying it looks a bit simplistic, but it doesn't really matter. It looks lovely. It looks like it's going to be cracking. So that's a kind of must-buy if you're into ICO/ECO, depending on how you pronounce it, and Shadow of the Colossus / Shadow of the Colossus. Yeah, Last Guardian's a must-buy, so looks great. Horizon Zero Dawn, couldn't really get in. It looked a lot like Heavenly Sword to me still, although albeit a much better looking one. A much better looking version of it. There's a lot of kind of robots, monster fighting stuff. Looks impressive. Again, this emphasis on there's not really an emphasis in another game where the lead character talks to themselves far too much. So again, I'm hoping the finished game cools it a wee bit with the soliloquies and the self-talking and the going, oh, I need to do this and I need to do that and blah blah blah. Just, I don't know. I hope that sort of thing puts me off and becomes repetitive really quickly. As long as the kind of main character's inner monologue isn't too repetitive and too wordy and too lengthy, then that'll be fine. But it looks nice. It looks really nice. Combat looks fluid enough. Again, I need to see more before I need to get my hands on it basically before I can give a solid opinion. Same deal with Detroit Become Human. It's another David Cage Quantic Dream effort, so if you liked Heavy Rain or Beyond, then this is your sort of thing. It looks fine. It's, I don't know, the trailer they showed looks lovely. It's clear from that it's another David Cage effort in that the interaction involved is going to be pretty minimal. The majority of user interaction that showed in the trailer was literally a choose your own adventure type thing, like will you do this or will you do that, and see what the story does next. So it's going to be another one of these interactive movies essentially. Looks really nice if you're into that kind of thing, and I personally am to an extent. Liked Heavy Rain, and so I'm up for Detroit, but it's pretty clear already that it's not going to be a massively in-depth game in terms of interaction. This is very much an interactive movie, your typical David Cage type thing. So if you're into that like I am, then it looks good. Sorry, my voice is properly on its arse now, so you're going to have to bear with me. After Detroit was the biggest surprise so far, I think. Well, the biggest surprise of E3, assuming Nintendo doesn't pull something special out their backside. And it was the kitchen, what looked like it was going to be another kitchen demo from Capcom, but it actually ended up being Resident Evil 7, which looks cracking, very scary demo. Wary of the fact that the whole game can be played start to finish in VR or the standard without VR. That worries me and makes me think either the whole thing's going to be first person in the style of Silent Hills with the way it was looking, or whether you can still play it third person classic Resident Evil style. But in that case, is the fact that it's VR as well going to hinder the non-VR gameplay, because it's going to have to be limited to allow for VR. So that's my only concern, is that this Resident Evil is going to be wildly different from other Resident Evils and go down the Silent Hills route instead. And maybe be even a first-person game. I'm curious to see how Resident Evil fans will react if that's the case. They then went from that on to more VR stuff. I'm still not sold on VR. Sorry, but I've got it pre-ordered, but my plan is still to cancel the pre-order at the last minute unless I see something that sells me on it, and I still haven't. Farpoint, which was like an alien type space game, looked pretty cool. So did the Star Wars X-Wing VR mission, Batman Arkham VR, Final Fantasy VR thing, but these all look like mini games basically with VR as opposed to full proper experiences. So I'm concerned that my kind of fears about VR are coming true, that a lot of it seems like nobody's nailed the motion sickness, and even though they're getting better, a lot of people are still going to be getting motion sick. So it looks like a lot of these experiences are your typical standing still or sitting down, be it in a spaceship or an X-Wing or whatever, because those are the experiences that make you least susceptible to most susceptible to motion sickness. So at the moment, it still looks like PlayStation VR, as impressive as it looks, is going to be a load of games where you're standing or sitting, and things happen around about you, which looks cool. But I need more than that for the price it's going to cost. I need to get more than that before I can get excited. It's nice that there's proper licensed stuff coming for it. So there's like a Star Wars VR, Batman VR, and the like. But I don't know. I still need more to convince me it's going to be more than just. I'm excited about virtual reality in general, but not so much for gaming, more for just other stuff like exploring worlds and like maybe in the future exploring museums and stuff like that, and exploring places in the world where you can't physically get to. Those are the kind of uses of VR I'm more excited about. I'm not convinced it's the future of gaming yet, because as it is, there's so much in gaming, be it third-person adventure games, anything really that involves a lot of movement, like character movement as opposed to moving in a vehicle. Sports games, like I struggle to see loads of different types of game genres that VR is going to replace. A virtual reality FIFA or Pro Evo is never going to be more fun than the typical side-on FIFA or Pro Evo for me. So I'm not convinced VR's the future. Will it be a nice gimmick? Yes. But I think that's all it's going to be at this point. Sorry, folks. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare was shown next. It looks pretty cool. A lot of space, gunplay, and then they showed a bit more Modern Warfare remastered. I'm not a massive Call of Duty fan, so I can't really go on too much about that. But it looks cool. It looks what it is. It is what it is. It's just typical yearly Call of Duty 10-minute block of gameplay, and it looked fine. If you're into that kind of thing, it looks good. I always play the Call of Duty single player campaigns and then trade it in, so I'll be doing the same with this. Then, as they approached the end, they dropped the Crash Bandicoot bombshell, sort of, in that it's not a new Crash Bandicoot game, but it's Crash Bandicoot 2, and Crash Bandicoot Warped are all being remastered for PS4, so that'll be cool. Depends how they remaster it. If they do like what they did with Ratchet and Clank recently, I'm well up for that. If it's just a texture boost, although in fairness it'll be a pretty big boost if you go from PS1 up to PS4, we'll see. And then they announced that Crash Bandicoot's going to be in Skylanders, but no one gives a shit. I mean, considering Spyro was in Skylanders back when it started, and then they put Donkey Kong and Bowser in it, having Crash Bandicoot in it isn't a big deal. And I hate the character design in Skylanders, so hopefully it looks more like standard Crash Bandicoot in the remasters. Showed a new trailer for Lego Star Wars Force Awakens, which looks amazing, well up for that. Kojima came on for the bombshell to show the trailer for Death Stranding. Now, I'm not a big Metal Gear Solid fan. I could never really get into that series. I thought the cutscenes are insufferable, so I've never really played Metal Gear Solid games in their entirety beyond the first couple of hours, because I usually get to the point where I just go, fuck this, put it off, can't be bothered. But this trailer got me really interested. I'm very impressed by the Death Stranding trailer. The name's horrendous. I'm glad that it's got Norman Reedus in it, holding a Norman fetus. Baby disappears, he's naked, don't know what the fuck's going on, there's loads of dead animals on a beach. It's everything that I look for in a game. Naked men, dead babies, dead animals on a beach, and 5 floating guys in space. So it's almost as if Kojima found my checklist. So yeah, I'm very curious about Death Stranding and what it has to offer in the coming years, because I'm assuming it'll be a couple of years before this one's out, if all we're getting so far is a trailer like that. So I'm guessing 2018 at the earliest before we see the finished game. So this one's going to be a marathon, folks, but it looks good so far. Then are we surprised that Insomniac Games are making a new Spider-Man, which is brilliant. Obviously Insomniac recently did Ratchet and Clank remastered, but I can see this Spider-Man being more of a kind of Sunset Overdrive type feel, which I'm totally fine with because I love that. Yeah, and then finally they went back to Days Gone, showed a bit of gameplay, and as expected it looks a bit Last of Us and stuff like that. And that was it. That was Sony's conference. Another strong one. Again, like I say, I went on Twitter after it, and there's a lot of people massively overreacting, in my opinion, going, Sony destroyed it, Sony's greatest E3 conference ever, Microsoft are doomed. What can you, and it's, and like I say, it's your usual. Sony are the, like I was saying earlier, so Sony can do no wrong just now, and Microsoft can do no right, according to some people. And I think that's a narrow-minded way of looking at it. I think the Sony conference was a strong one. I think last year's was better. It had bigger bombshells. But yeah, I would give it an 8 out of 10. I would give Microsoft's an 8, maybe a 7. I don't think anyone massively destroyed E3 and hammered anyone else. I think regardless of whether you're a PlayStation 4 owner or an Xbox One owner, there is so many great games coming out that it's massively exciting for both sides. Even if you have to take sides, I'd rather people, I appreciate not everyone has the money to own both systems, and not everyone's as fortunate as some of us are to be able to do that, but you shouldn't have to take sides. Just, if you're a PlayStation 4 owner and you're happy with it, brilliant. If you're an Xbox One owner and you're happy with yours, brilliant. There's no need to fire shots at the other side to justify your decision. Both Microsoft and Sony had brilliant conferences this year, in my opinion. and it's an exciting time for games. EA's not so much. EA is blatantly having a gap year. Sports games aside, Ubisoft are churning out loads of stuff. That's pretty impressive. Even Bethesda's got some good stuff on the way. It's been a really good E3. All that's left coming up is Zelda. I deliberately not spoken much about Zelda because I don't really want to watch that much of it, which sounds a bit weird being a massive Nintendo fan. I'm worried that this Nintendo Treehouse thing that's coming up is going to show so much of it that a lot of the impact is going to be lost when it finally comes out, and I know I'm definitely going to be buying it, so that's why I've done this recording before Zelda, because I don't really want to talk that much about it. There'll be loads of other people talking about Zelda that isn't me, and I don't want to see that much of it. I want to watch the first 10-20 minutes, see that it looks cool, and then maybe just leave it and let everyone else talk amongst themselves, because I don't want to spoil too much of it. I'm worried that Nintendo's going to show too much. I'm going to check it, going to watch it, make sure it looks the part as I expect, and then walk away. And my E3 will be done at that point. Kind of that'll do pig situation. I just want to see if there's a female Link. I want to see if how the open world stuff works, and then I will step away from the screen and have a nap, rest my voice. But yeah, so that's my take on E3. I asked on Twitter for my Twitter followers to say what they were excited about, and the responses just show kind of how this year's E3 has had something for everyone. There's a really wide range of reactions. Tony Coffey said The Last Guardian release date in Resident Evil 7. To be honest, I could pick anything from Sony. They killed it last night. Like I say, I think that's slightly over the top, but fine. If you're a Sony fan and you're delighted with it, brilliant, because you should be. And if you're a Microsoft fan and you're delighted with theirs, brilliant, you should be. Speaking of which, Tom Bickmore says, my favourite is Xbox One having a 4K Blu-ray drive. To get a game console as well for the discount price is awesome. Yep, like I say, that's an insane price for a 4K Blu-ray player, which also happens to be an Xbox One. Non-Ray Lame says, Inside at the Microsoft conference, as in the game from the Limbo creators. Very little shown, out in 2 weeks, critical acclaim in advance, classy unveiling. Aaron Cuthbertson says, can't wait for Sea of Thieves. Finally get to live out my pirate fantasies, but there better be some sea shanties in it like in Black Flag. Agreed. Stuart Fraser says, it's all great stuff. Also agreed. But genuinely probably the One S. Cheap access to a 4K Blu-ray player and Xbox One exclusive games. Yep. That's the thing. It's that cheap. I wonder how many PS4 owners might now buy a One S as well, to get almost like the same way people buy a Wii U, so that they've got their main console and then they've got the Nintendo console to play all the Nintendo exclusives. Now that the One S is going to be quite cheap and have a 4K Blu-ray player, I wonder how many Sony PS4 owners might buy a One S to have the Microsoft exclusives and a 4K Blu-ray player. So that's an interesting way. Instead of Microsoft might be trying not to take over the Sony market, but to share it. So we'll see. Bart says his favourite moment has to be Microsoft taking PC seriously now, Gears 4 in particular, all over it. James Abbott says, We Happy Few looks very promising, looks like a mix between Bioshock and Amnesia, which can only be a good thing. Agreed. Afi Lockhart says, Scalebound got me very excited, as did Dead Rising 4. James Duckett says, Crash Bandicoot remasters. Crash 3 is my first game. If it gets a Ratchet & Clank 2016 level remaster, I'll be delighted. Yep. And Bally says, Stardew Valley coming to Wii U. Yeah, they showed Stardew Valley, the kind of farming type game, during the Xbox One indie thing. At which point a developer came on Twitter and said it was also coming to PS4 and Wii U, so that's good. That's a much loved game coming to consoles. Bally says, a random but awesome announcement. Let me just quickly check my Twitter feed and see if there's any other wee shouts while I was recording this. Former CVG man Paul Davies says his favourite moment was Sony's I'll just leave that there no show of Neo. Yeah, that's a good point. Sony is also working on a more powerful system, much like Microsoft Scorpio, so it's interesting that they didn't even mention it. So curious to see what their strategy is there, whether they were waiting to see what Microsoft were going to have before they made their move, or whether they're maybe being a wee bit sneaky and suggesting that waiting for everyone to buy PSVR when it comes out, waiting for everyone to buy PSVR in October and imply that PS4 is all you'll need for it, and then when everyone buys it, they'll maybe then come out with Neo and say, oh, yeah, that was good. But if you really want to experience proper VR with smoother stuff, then get this. So we'll see. But yeah, it's curious to see what's happening there. Rory Mackay says the Crash Bandicoot collection announcement was his best moment. He thought we were just getting Skylanders, but they surpassed all expectation. JR Wraith says Death Stranding. I love the look of the person in the suit that Code G Pro is using for the logo. I really like Norman Reedus. Lloyd Buckle said Insomniac Spider-Man. Take Civil War Spider-Man, mix it with Sunset Overdrive style traversal, and you've got me sold. So yeah, like I said, Graham Lawson says Last Guardian. The wait for this has been like 2 Zeldas. Nowhere near my Zelda hype, but the most non-Nintendo game ever. Lord Nibs says, not an announcement, but the Horizon demo was fantastic. Gave me real Zelda vibes. Zelda vibes? As in, is there a different Horizon, or am I thinking? Because I'm thinking Forza Horizon. Either way, I'm going to assume he says Forza Horizon, even though it's probably a different game called Horizon that I've forgotten. Chris Horner says all going to be in first person. I'm assuming this is relating to Resident Evil. Yeah, that's my concern as well. We'll see. And yeah, so a lot of good feedback. Amanda Jones says Crash Bandicoot Remaster. I can replay my childhood and not have to buy another PS1. But she also says that the 500 gig Xbox One S is only $300. I might buy it and I have no interest in Xbox One exclusives. That kind of backs up what I was saying before. This low price point Xbox with 4K video is, by announcing it first before Sony announced theirs, a lot of Sony fans might be looking over and saying, maybe I can have both. Yeah, so there we go. That's everyone's kind of announcements. Knockman says Super Spider-Man, need a good Spider-Man game for a while, and looks like Insomniac are the type people for it. I'm assuming he means the right people for it, but they're also type people, so that's good. So yeah, that's this year's E3 2016, Nintendo aside. I'll be tweeting my thoughts on Zelda on my Twitter, but again, just for the first 10-20 minutes, then I am ditching that shit and hiding away from all things Zelda until it finally comes out, because I don't want it spoiled. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed my little hour and a half, just under hour and a half chat about everything that's been shown at E3 so far. Considering I raced through it and it still took me an hour and 20 odd minutes, I think that shows that there's so much for everyone announced this year, and there's really no room for people to be saying these guys were great, those guys were shit. That's really not how we should be going about this. I appreciate I can't tell you what to say and can't tell you what to think, but seriously, this is an amazing industry. Everyone should be happy. I appreciate that not everyone can afford every console, and it's human nature to try and justify your choice by putting down the others. So I can understand why everyone who jumped from Xbox 360 last generation to a PS4 now, it's their prerogative to badmouth Microsoft, because it helps them feel like they made the right decision with PS4, and vice versa. Everyone who stayed with Xbox One, or who even jumped from PS3 to Xbox One this generation, will always take pot shots at Sony and call them arseholes because it makes them feel like they made the right choice with going with Xbox. Listen, whatever you chose, you made the right choice. Both systems have fantastic exclusives. Both conferences were great. There's at least 5 or 6 games in each that I'm now excited about. Yeah, we've got Nintendo NX to come in the future. Obviously not at E3, but in the distant future, or near future, hopefully, a bit of NX. We've got PlayStation 4 Neo to come. We've got Xbox One Scorpio to come. The future's bright. There's loads of PC stuff on the way. Everyone should just be happy. If you're going to fire shots at anyone, fire shots at people who can't appreciate games for what they are and just feel it's a constant war. It isn't. Everyone wins E3. Sony didn't win it. Microsoft didn't win it. We all won it, because regardless of what system you own, there's some fucking amazing stuff on the way, and I'm very excited, and I hope you are too. Thanks for listening. Keep it on tiredoldhack.com. Once my hand gets better, there'll be loads more stuff coming up. If you want more stuff from me, check out my YouTube channel, because I've started a new video series called Gem Hunter. All I'm allowed to do just now, the way my hand is just now, I can still play games because my hand's in a resting pose when I do it and not straining using the keyboard and mouse. So that means the only content I can do just now is video content that doesn't involve editing. As such, I've started my old series. I did a few pilot episodes a couple of years ago for a thing called Gem Hunter, and now I'm properly starting it, in which I take old, forgotten kind of shovelware games and mostly PS2, Xbox and GameCube games and Dreamcast games, and kind of play through them to see if they're actually hidden gems. We've had 2 episodes so far. One wasn't a hidden gem and one was, surprisingly. So yeah, check out my Gem Hunter videos, check out Tired Old Hack. There's 80 articles on there from the past year that you can read back through. A lot of it's still relevant. Loads of stuff about being a games journalist and what it's like. And yeah, keep me followed on Twitter. If you're even feeling massively dedicated, I've got a Patreon account. It's just patreon.com/Chris Scullion. It's doing quite well. If I hit my next target, I'm going to start doing a regular podcast similar to this, but with actual other people on it. So if you enjoyed today and my insights, let me know. I might make this a weekly thing or maybe a fortnightly thing. Just we're talking about kind of general gaming news, not just E3 stuff. Let me know if you'd like that. And yeah, thanks again for listening, and I will catch you later on, probably on Twitter, but not much, because my hand's fucked. Cheers. Bye.